Hello guys, today we will be talking about What if Naruto was a Saiyan and neglected Part 1. If you enjoy this video please like and subscribe. Now let's begin. 5 years later, unknown island, a black blur was currently zipping around, causing several rock textures to explode on contact and be reduced to rubble as the blur made contact with them and vanished from plain sight. Several more erupted on contact with either a punch or kick before once again they were nothing more than a pile of pebbles. The blur appeared in the air before landing on the ground with a crouch, revealing a spiky black-haired teenager who appeared to be 11 to 12 years old. He seemed to be wearing a black fighter gi with a red sash holding it together. Picture the outfit Gohan wore during the Cell games, along with a pair of black martial arts shoes, similar to the ones Vegeta wears. He then stood straight up, revealing the face of none other than Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. For the past 4 years he has spent all of his time training under his masters Goku and Shinron and has changed a lot during his travels. He spent the first year training his physical strength and speed using the turtle shell Goku had him wear for basically every form of physical training he had him do, such as climbing mountains with weights on his arms and legs or with one arm tied behind his back. He also did the same when it came to something like swimming in order to not just increase his strength but his speed as well. During his travels he learned how to perform a lot of labor jobs such as carpenting, farming, and construction work, and would usually travel to small villages and assist them. Naruto also went through survival training where he had to learn about the various plants that he could use for healing as well as ones that could be eaten and are poisonous, as well as use the landscape to build shelters like a homemade teepee or a small cabin. Training in the wild did give him a more perspective for nature and wildlife, and sleeping out at night and eating food you catch yourself shows you're capable of surviving alone in the forest. It also helped train his senses and raised his awareness around him in case missing nin or bandits attempted to attack him. Not only that, but he also learned some intermediate fu and jutsu from a monk that live in the mountain range of Yamanokuni, and needless to say the young Saiyan was a natural and was able to understand the basics of modern sealing complexes that most beginner couldn't understand and would take a few years to learn. So far, he knew how to use seals and scrolls to store supplies, money, clothes, tools, etc. The second year Goku got Naruto started in learning how to control his ki, or chi, which was in a manner the same as chakra, since it was naturally the life force, which is a tangible energy that lives inside a living being and its major focus being in the center of the body. By drawing it out, a person is able to manipulate it and use it for performances outside the body as well as increase their speed, strength, endurance, and can increase the power of their attacks to inflict greater damage to opponents. Goku first taught Naruto how to draw out his ki, and when he was able to do that, he proceeded to help him in learning how to summon it in its raw form by having him focus in summoning it into his palms. This exercise took around 3 weeks to perform before he was able to create a ball of ki, which left Naruto surprised and awestruck at how beautiful it looked. Once he managed to do that, Goku first taught him the basic attack for this technique called the Ki Blast, and with that, Naruto spent his time learning how to manipulate and shape the blast into different forms and managed to form it into either a thin beam of energy that can easily pierce through solid rock or steel to one that can leave a crater in the ground, as well as form it into a thin disc that can cut down countless trees in a single line. The only issue was the amount of energy he put in them, so he spent his time in working how to not waste so much and control it effectively. After that, Goku decided to teach him a few ki-based techniques that were really powerful if used correctly, the ones that he learned or seen his friends use. He started off by teaching him his family's traditional technique, the Kamehameha Wave, Turtle Destruction Wave, which happened to be the first technique he learned from Master Roshi when he started his training. Goku instructed Naruto in how the energy attack was basically a straightforward attack that could do serious damage, ranging from destroying a small mountain and causing tidal waves to wiping out a large city and destroying an entire planet or even a solar system. So with that, Naruto learned the Kamehameha and even created different variations of it, like ones he could use as a barrage attack or manipulate it like a heat-seeking missile. Surprisingly, Naruto managed to get the technique down in nearly half a year before Goku taught him the other key techniques, but only after he was able to use them properly and master them to an extent, and even then, Naruto still continued to hone his skills even after mastering whichever technique Goku taught him. Shinran on the other hand taught Naruto an ancient style of fighting called elemental bending, which was the bending of the five elements that were based off of a certain fighting style, basically its bending form the Avatar cartoon, that evoke the feel of flowing water. Water bending's strength is its great versatility. Rather than supporting a separate set of offensive methods, water bending employs defensive techniques that can be transformed into attacks and counters, defense into offense. Instead of simply deflecting an attack, water bending's defensive maneuvers focus on control, achieved through turning an opponent's own strength against him, rather than directly harming the bind with a certain element like water bending for example. Water bending is based on a style of Tai Chi Chuan, specifically the Yang style. It is a Chinese martial art that features slow movements and elegant forms opponent. The other was Earthbending. Earthbending is generally based on the Hung Gar style of Kung Fu, which features heavily rooted stances and strong kicks and punches that evoke the mass and power of Earth. The martial art is based on the movements of animals, including the tiger, which is utilized when initiating hard blows, and the crane, which is used to land gently back on the earth. Another version which is more versatile is one based off the southern praying mantis Kung Fu, using its precise stepping to maintain contact with the ground as well as sensing the different vibration through the ground and reading a person's emotion without using your eyesight. Another one was fire bending. Fire bending moves are based mainly on the style of northern Shaolin Kung Fu, but with a few techniques from northern seven-star praying mantis. These martial arts feature quick, successive attacks that exert extreme power for just a moment, much like an explosion, called Jing Lik. It optimizes a strong continuous offense, sacrificing defense for greater power, the principle behind a preemptive strike, making firebending the most aggressive of the five. Airbending is based on the Bagua style of martial arts, also known as circle walking or a trigram palm, along with a small hint of Xingyi, also known as mind-heart boxing. These martial arts feature swift, evasive maneuvers that evoke the intangibility and explosive power of wind, drawing energy from the center of the abdomen. Bagua, which utilizes circle walking, the idea behind it being the act of walking the 8 trigrams, is known for its constant circular movement, which makes it difficult for opponents to attack directly or land a blow. Since it's always maneuvering, nobody can get a solid hold on of this maneuver. Maneuvers employ the entire body with smooth coiling and uncoiling movements, utilizing dynamic footwork, open hand techniques, punches and throws. A common tactic is to maneuver behind an opponent and mirror their movements, preventing them from turning to face the practitioner. Unlike other bending disciplines, airbending is almost entirely a defensive art. The final one was lightning bending, which unlike the other elements relied on using the internal strength such as the bioelectricity that emits around a person's body but is invisible to the naked eye. Lightning bending was basically one of the most dangerous forms of bending since it was based off of the Shotokan fighting style, delivering fast and precise blows that relied on the person having fast reflexes. Basically each of these 5 basic disciplines each represent the balance of life, meaning neither one was too strong or too weak. With this, Naruto was intermediate at best, learning the 5 elemental fighting styles. Goku also taught him a very unique technique known as flight, Buku Jutsu, in which the user manipulates their ki energy so that they can levitate or fly into the air. Naruto was literally excited in learning how to fly, as he always wondered what it would be like to soar across the air like birds do and see everything below him. Goku had to agree since he too loved to fly. When Naruto first started off, he could only levitate a few feet into the air and slowly learned how to maneuver around objects and increase his speed and slow down. The first few tries proved to be disastrous at first due to the fact that Naruto ended up crashing into several trees face first and then one time the side of a cliff, leaving an imprint of his body which made Goku and Shinran bust out laughing at the incidents, but he did start to improve as he got older. Right now Naruto overall had an excellent build for someone his age, think Teen Gohan from the Cell games. Swaying behind his back was his tail, and Goku also warned him about how a Saiyan's tail was their weak point, as whenever it is grabbed, It weakens the Saiyan greatly, but he helped Naruto overcome that weakness. Naruto also worked on using a bow staff and a katana, as he bought them both from a weapons store near the border of Fire Country, and worked on the katya as the style he learned from Hiruzen and Kushina before the incident. Said Saiyan was observing the damage he did around the area and couldn't help but rub the back of his head sheepishly. "Hey, looks like I overdid it a little," Naruto stated as he saw a rock texture collapse over and hit the ground. Hey, don't fret Naruto, you've improved a lot over the last 7 years in controlling your power. Good thing this mountain isn't populated," Goku stated as he was extremely proud on how far Naruto has gotten in his training and felt a sense of pride. "Indeed. I didn't expect you to get this strong so soon, young one, but it looks like you've surpassed my expectations," the Eternal Dragon remarked with a sense of pride in his voice. "Thanks Shinron-sensei," Naruto said as he wiped a bead of sweat from his face. "Though I wonder how Kushina-chan and Mito-chan as well as the other are doing. I really miss them." "I'm pretty sure they are doing just fine, Naruto. After all, they're each strong in their own way," Goku assured his apprentice. Naruto merely sighs and nods as he makes his way over to the small hut to gather his things. "I guess you're right, sensei, since Saruoji has things handled." He pulls out a map of the elemental countries and inspects it. "I'll need to restock my supplies at the closest village, and I think I'll make a detour to Kiri next. What do you think, Goku-sensei?" Naruto asked as he got his stuff packed up. "Sounds like a plan, Naruto. Let's get some supplies first at the closest village on the island, and I think you should head to one of the closest elemental countries next," he instructed while his apprentice studied the map. "That would be Kirigakure no Sato." "Alright then, next stop Kiri. Say sensei, can I fly there this time instead of having to swim like I did when I went to Nami no Kuni?" he asked and heard his mentor chuckle. "Sure Naruto, knock yourself out, but don't do it literally, as I still haven't gotten over that time you crashed head first into that mountain, hehehe," Goku said, chuckling while Naruto hung his head in embarrassment before flaring his ki and taking off into the air. After getting the supplies, he was currently soaring over the ocean, passing several islands. "Man, that's weird, I should be close to Kiri right now," he pondered until he noticed a ship sailing across the water. "Maybe they would know if I was close or not." With that he took off towards the ship. "Man, this is so boring." A female Kari nin groaned while 2 of her comrades had tick marks on their heads. "For the love of Kami, stop whining, damn it." A Jonin yelled, getting tired of the Chunin's constant whining, even though water patrol was the most boring objective, while the other Jonin chuckles. "Relax man, it's not like we're running to anything out here," he remarked until he saw a black dot heading in their direction. "Hey, what is that?" he asked as he squinted his eye, and his teammates did the same until the dot got a little bigger. "It looks like a kid and he's flying towards us." The female nin's eyes bugged out while her comrades appear right beside her with the same expression. "No way," the Jonin said until Naruto appeared before them, hovering in the air like it was as simple as breathing. "Hey, are you guys from Kirigakure no Sato?" Naruto asked the group, who said nothing but gape at him. "How are you hovering in the air like that?" the other male Kiri nin asked. Naruto blinked a few times at their reaction and shrugs. "It's a technique my sensei taught me, but anyway, are you guys from Kiri?" Naruto asked again. "Yeah, we are, but why are you going there? Don't you know there's a civil war going on there?" the male nin asked the young Saiyan. "Really? Wow, I didn't know that, but I'm merely going into the wilderness as I am a traveler," the black-haired Saiyan answered while the ninja looked at him in a skeptic manner but relented. "Fine then, it's 10 miles southwest from here, but like I said, be careful as travelers aren't really welcome there," the leader informed Naruto, who nodded back at the ninja. "Okay, and thanks for the info." Later, he did a 2-finger salute with his hand before flaring up his ki and took off instantly, making the water from under him splash upwards and even creating a gust of wind, leaving the 3 Kiri ninjas dumped. "That was awesome," the female nin said with stars in her eyes while her 2 comrades merely nodded in agreement. Meanwhile Naruto managed to make it to Water Country and was searching for a good spot where he could train in peace as well as make a temporary home while being close to a village where he could restock his supplies should he run out, and after searching for a while he found a great spot that was near a mountain range and below it was a jungle with a decent clearing and a large river along with a waterfall flowing into the river. Afterwards, he spent the whole week making a decent-sized cabin for himself before setting up the rooms with the furniture he sealed up as well as his tools, clothes, training weights, etc. Right now the young Saiyan walking through a trail he created in the jungle carrying the dead body of a wild boar he caught that was hog-tied to a large stick over his shoulder and also was carrying a large sack that contained wild fruits and vegetables as well as medical herbs that grew in the forest. Man, catching this boar with weighted clothes was a lot tougher than I thought, but at least I'm getting a decent workout, he said as he made it to his cabin and drops the boar onto the ground and wipes a bead of sweat from his forehead. Phew, this humidity is no joke. I didn't think it would be this hot and curie, he thought while pulling out a jagged-looking dagger with the edges appearing to be smoothed out but extremely sharp, and proceeded to skin the boar and then cut open the stomach and remove whatever entrails he didn't need and threw them somewhere in the jungle away from his cabin and where scavengers would get them. Afterwards, he hung the skinned body over a pole that is out of the reach of any bears, wolves, and mountain lions while removing the tusks just in case he needed extra tools. For the rest of the day, the cheerful Saiyan was in the jungle, performing acrobatic feats across the trees and in ways most kids his age couldn't even think of doing, but then again he is not like other kids considering who his ancestor is. As he landed onto another tree, he stopped in his tracks and took a whiff in the air. His eyes narrowed as the scent grew stronger. That smell, there's blood in the air and the direction of where the smell is coming from. He lands in the area and his eyes widened at the sight. The area seemed to be charred and on the ground were the bodies of masked ninja who were either in the ground in a puddle of their own blood, with missing limbs, or to his surprise and shock melted, seems to be fresh and also, sniff, sniff. He took off into, oh man, there must have been an intense fight here earlier. He pondered and looked around the area only to see a blood trail that went into the jungle. Someone's injured and from the scent she's female. I'd better get to her before she's picked off by the predators in this forest or worse, bandits. With that he took off into the forest. As he leapt through the trees the scent was getting stronger and as he landed on the last tree, out of pure reflex he flips off of it as it was hit by a glob of what appeared to be lava and melted the entire tree. Whoa, that was close, he stated and heard someone huffing. He turned his head to see in his sights was whom he could picture was without a doubt the most beautiful woman he's ever set eyes on. From her appearance she seemed to be around 18 years old. She has ankle-length, auburn hair styled into a herringbone pattern at the back, a top knot tied with a dark blue band, and with 4 bangs at the front. 2 bangs are short, with one covering her right eye, and 2 are long, crossing each other on her chest, just below her chin. Her eyes are light green. She dresses in a long-sleeved dark blue dress that falls just below the knees. It seems to be closed at the front with a zipper, and is kept open on the front right side from the waist down. The dress only covers up to the upper part of her arms and the underside of her breasts. Underneath, she wears a mesh shirt that covers more of her upper body than her dress, but stops short of covering her shoulders and still leaves a sizable cleavage. She also wears shorts in the same color as her and underneath those mesh leggings reaching down over her knees. Around her waist, she wears a belt with a pouch attached to the back on the left. Furthermore, she wears high-heeled sandals and shin guards reaching up over her knees. All in all, she looked like a goddess in Naruto's eyes and he couldn't help but blush a little at her flawless form despite the fact that she had a few tears and dirt on her face. A sided smile formed on the auburn-haired woman's face as she saw the boy stare. "You see something you like?" she teased but then hissed in pain, clutching her bleeding side and was about to collapse over until she was caught in the arms of the black-haired Saiyan. "Whoa, take easy lady, otherwise you're gonna bleed out more than usual," Naruto warned as he carefully helped her up, while looking at the gash on the left side. "You need to get that treated before it gets infected. I have a cabin not far from here, I can treat it for you," he offered but then frowned as he sensed a group of unknown ninja heading here. The next thing May knew, She was scooped up in his arms bridal style and said woman eeks in surprise. Sorry about this but we've got to go. With that, they both vanished in a blur, leaving the hunter Nin on a cold trail. A day later Materumi, the leader of the rebel faction and person Naruto helped was looking outside for her savior from yesterday. By the river, a large splash occurred, surprising May as a fish that was the size of a small bear and hit the ground, flapping and flailing around. After that, Naruto leapt out of the river, shirtless and wearing his pants, like Gohan did after the Cell Games. As he landed on the soft ground, he shook his head in order to get the water out of his hair and then did the same for his body until his tail wagged off the remaining bit of water on his person. Man, these fish are tough to catch, he said to himself, unaware that May was sporting a small blush on her face as she saw his toned body. Never in her life had she seen any kid his age this ripped, as he had the build of a warrior due to the fact that he hardly had any form of baby fat on his person. That was when she noticed his tail and had to resist the urge of screaming kawaii at the sight. That was when Naruto turned his attention to May and his expression brightened. Hey May-chan, I see you decided to get some fresh air while I was fishing. I guess those herbs did the trick and helped you recover faster, said 18-year-old, snapped out of her stupor and couldn't help but smile at his expression. Indeed they did, Naruto-kun, and thanks for helping me even though you didn't have to. She replied back and nearly gawked as she saw him hoist the giant fish that was twice his size over his shoulder. I know, but I couldn't live with myself if I let someone as pretty as you get killed by those hunter nin. He replied back in an honest tone, unaware that his words made the tint of pink on her face grow a little and ill. When it came to the opposite sex, Naruto was not as dense around females like his sensei was due to the fact that when he was in Konoha, he basically spent a lot of time around them. Basically, he was innocent when it came to women and would simply compliment them on their beauty as if it was the simplest thing in the world, unaware that it would result in them blushing due to how innocent he looked when he told them. Most males would do it to get into their pants, but Naruto was a different case. Another thing Naruto didn't like were perverts. His Aniki Kakashi was an exception in a way due to the fact that he mostly kept his in check thanks to Rin and the fact that he reads what his mother called smut. Thank you Naruto-kun, she replied in a quiet tone as she brushed one of her bangs back. Kami, what's wrong with me? He's a preteen for crying out loud, yet here I am acting shy around him. And those innocent eyes aren't helping the fact either. You're welcome. Well, I'm gonna go get this fish skinned and cleaned for lunch. How do you feel about sushi? He asked May, who smiled. That would be great Naruto-kun. She replied back. Great. I'll get onto it and afterwards I can take you back to your camp. With that he headed to the back of the cabin in order to gut, clean, and cook the fish for lunch. 6 months later. It's been 6 months since Naruto met May and resumed his training in the deep wilderness of Mizuno-Kuni. Ever since then, many rumors have spread throughout the country and the shinobi village of an entity within the forests. Many don't know what it was, but how they know is that many in the shinobi village could hear the sounds of trees falling or explosions of something out of the ordinary. Sadly, no one was able to find this person or thing since no one knew what it exactly was. But even then, during the Bloodline War, the mysterious deaths of Kiri shinobi that believed in Yagura, the current Mizukage's ideals about the bloodlines being demonic in nature, were always found at the Mizukage Tower's doorsteps, either in a broken and bloody heap, barely alive, or simply dead, depending on the person's condition. The only sign this mysterious entity showed was the slight indentation of feet at the doorstep of the tower, and the only person rumored to have met this being was the rebels' very own female leader, Materumi, who was said to have been saved by this unknown warrior when she was ambushed by the current Mizukage's elite hunter nin. Though there was one thing that all the shinobi, whether they were of the rebel forces or the ones that followed the Mizukage, remembered, and it was the sight they saw only 3 months ago during the second assault between the two on the rebels' fortress of Tazuki. It was when the forest was being ravaged by the jutsu and explosive traps being used, that something horrific happened. Flashback: Fortress of Tazuki. Materumi had just snapped the neck of an Enbunin that had attempted to attack her blind spot, while her forces were assaulting the fortress. The sound of battle cries, blades clashing, seal tags exploding, and just to being unleashed echoed around the bloody war-torn fortress, and bodies of both rebels and loyalists littered the ground. Smoke also rose around the area as the battle ensured under the full moon. "We have to keep pushing. This fortress is one of Yagura's main strongholds, and if we can claim it, then we'll be one step at getting closer to the village, but at this rate," she pondered as she watched her comrades, the very people that were either bloodline holders, or simply those who were against the war, fought with everything they had. "It's gonna take a miracle for this to succeed. I wish Naruto-kun was here." As soon as those words left her train of thought, a deafening roar echoed across area, making all of those that were fighting stop in their tracks and look around. Mei's eyes widened in fear, thinking that it Yagura who was in his Baiju form to come assist his army in defending the fortress and was gonna call on her forces to retreat, until she looked up and saw a large hulking figure leap over and land in the middle of the battle, causing the earth to shake violently and for dust to rise into the air. When it cleared, everyone's eyes widened in shock, horror, and fear as they set their eyes on what appeared to be a beast whose height rivaled if not surpassed even that of the nine-tailed beasts. It appeared to be a giant monkey-like creature with dark brown fur covering its entire body minus its face, hands, and feet, with large pointed ears, and its long and powerful tail swished around back and forth. It sported a set of wicked-looking canines in its maw, but what mainly freaked them all out was its glowing red eyes. They were basically, in simple terms, primal. More primal than any other animals, and from the way it was growling at the Kiri ninja, it was not happy, and a growl rumbled from the giant tape's throat. Mei stood on a tower speechless beyond words as she stared at the beast. Her look of fear changed to surprise as she recognized the tail, and the image of a grinning Naruto popped up in her mind. "Naruto," she said quietly before said blonde stood straight up and let out a deafening roar that was so powerful that it shook the ground more than he did when he landed into the area and started to beat his chest. "What the hell is that thing?" one of Yagura's ninja cried out. "Who cares, just kill the monster." With that, the ninja on Yagura's side proceeded to throw countless kunai with explosive tags on them at Naruto and exploded on contact, covering his form in smoke. Some smirked triumphantly, thinking that they killed the beast, but when the smoke cleared, Naruto was unharmed and snarling in annoyance, shocking the ninja to the core, as those explosive tags had enough power to level a large building but didn't even singe its fur. Naruto brought his hand up into the air and brought it down hard, crushing the enemy ninja like flies. He roared in triumph before stomping repeatedly on the ground. As this happened, the rebels decided to be smart and get the hell out of the giant tape's way as he attacked the enemy nin with his hands, feet, and tail, as they tried to use both explosives and jutsu that did little to slow him down. Mei watched the one-sided fight go on, pondering on how Naruto became this giant ape. One of her COs appeared next to her, as did Chojuro. "My Kami," was all the man said as he witnessed this slaughter, while Chojuro tried his best not to lose his lunch at the massacre. They then watched as the Saiyan-turned ape reared his head back, opening his maw wide and gathering what appeared to be energy into its mouth. Once he gathered enough, with mighty roar, brought his head forwards and fires an energy blast so potent that it dissolves anything in its path to nothing, while the other ninja watched frozen in horror as the attack descended towards them. When it made contact, an explosion lit up half of the country in a flash of light, causing the place to erupt and generate a shockwave that ripped trees from the ground as well as the earth itself. Mei shielded her eyes from the shining light and the debris, as did Chojuro and Ao. When it cleared, they each saw a crater that was extremely wide and deep, and there was barely nothing left of the fortress or the shinobi guarding it. "There's nothing left in that energy. It wasn't chakra or yukai. It was too potent," a stumped Ao stated as he has seen a Imari, menacing ball, and what damage it could do, but this made it look like child's play. "We better get out of here as well before it spots us," Chojuro suggested as he backed away, only for his heel to tap a rock that fell off the tower they were on and hit the ground. Chojuro's eyes bugged out in fear as he saw it make a clicking sound, as did Ao. "You baka, what have you done?" Ao tried not to scream out. Naruto froze in his tracks and his ears twitched from the sound before turning its head to their direction. Ao and Chojuro paled to the point where they looked like ghosts as the ape growled lowly as his head descended toward the three ninja. Mei did nothing but stare at the form until she stared at Naruto's glowing red eyes. We're gonna die, I'm sorry Al-sama. Chojuro whimpered out as they both sweat bullets. That was when Naruto stopped growling and lightly sniffed Mei's form and went from their primal state to a look of curiosity. Mei blinked also as she saw this and slowly reached out, moving her hand to his giant muzzle, making Ao and Chojuro freak out in a comically fashion. That was until she placed her hands on his muzzle, resulting in the ape to growl out softly as she gently rubbed his nose. Naruto sits down, making the earth rumble lightly while wagging his tail in a happy manner, and from their shock was purring. Both Ao and Chojuro felt like they were gonna faint as this behemoth that not too long ago ravaged the fortress, destroying it and the enemy like they were nothing, was now being calmed by their leader of all people, and wondered what was her connection to this beast. Can this beast really be Naruto? Mei wondered as she felt its muzzle vibrate. She then notices that he was trying to growl out something. Mei-chan, was all it said, causing Mei's eyes to widen, and the same went with Ao and Chojuro. It spoke to Mei-sama. Chojuro cried out, pointing his finger at Naruto in a comical fashion, only to get a brain duster to the back of his skull by Ao. Baka. Don't scream, you'll startle it. The man yelled back. Naruto was all Mei said quietly while said ape got back up and walked away from her, disappearing into the forest. Flashback ends after hearing about the destruction of the fortress. Yagura immediately sent the remaining Kiri no Shinobi Katana Shichinen Shu, the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, in search of the beast so he could kill it for killing her shinobi and one of his main strongholds, only on that same day, to come back with them extremely injured and on the brink of death itself. One Kisame Hashigaki, Kirigakure's very own Kirigakure no Kaijin, monster of the hidden mist, quickly fled after the swordsmen reported their failure. Rumors said, the fish man was extremely terrified after the encounter with the ape, and was said by one of the surviving swordsmen that Kisame got the worst of it. He was close to being killed by the thing if it wasn't for his Samada saving him at the last second. Ever since then and on our way back, Kisame was always looking over his shoulder for another attack. But what basically got Kisame scared was the great ape's eyes. They were primal and filled with a rage that would make the Hakibi's rampage look like a carnival ride, and the blue-skinned man downright refused to go after that ape, not caring if his leader would execute him or not, as he never wanted to see that beast or its eyes ever again for as long as he lived. So safe to say, Yagura kept a wary eye for the so-called ape, but still concentrated on the war. Mei though had an entirely different reaction after the event, so she just placed the report down, stood up, and went into the forest issuing orders to her second-in-command that she would be gone for a bit, and didn't want anyone to follow her. No one was able to tell what Mei was thinking that day, and her eyes didn't portray anything when she went into the forest, but it was highly thought she went to meet the ape herself, only to come back with a big smile on her face, and a dazed look in her eyes. Ever since then, despite the best efforts of the rebels asking what happened, all she said was that the ape wouldn't harm them at all and wouldn't be seen again for a while. Still, it made people wary if it ever shown up again, but also they were suspicious of how Mei was the only one to know the ape, but also the strange entity in the forest. That was another thing, people were beginning to think the entity and the monstrous ape were the same thing. So, when they found no sighting of it before and after Mei went to find it, they felt extremely relieved. But now, after 6 months of fighting, the rebels were losing their sight in the war, and with Yagura pressing on all sides made it hard for them to counterattack. It made it only worse, when said Jinchuriki was joining the battle in order to end the war quickly, and it was happening with him having perfect control over his Baiju. The Sanbi no Kyode game, 3-tailed giant turtle, made the war tip in his favor. Kirigakure rebels' main camp in the main camp of the Kirigakure's rebel forces, we could see in the main hut, was a round table with the inner map of the whole village of Kirigakure within. Around this table was commanders and generals that made up to command the forces. Reaching the end of the table was Mei Tirami, rebel faction's leader, Yotan no Danshinyakuin, lava dancing princess, and rumored to be the only link to the strange entity in the forest, and the Baiju-sized ape as well. We can't keep hold on our positions with the enemy pushing forward, is only making it worse. I agree, and with Yagura on the front lines himself is making it impossible to push back and only watch our men get slaughtered out there. True, and with our resources going down immensely and the enemy all converging on us in one giant army is gonna make things even worse. Seeing their leader's thoughtful look, the general spoke. Mei-sama, do you have any idea to handle this situation? Mei kept thinking for a while, not showing she heard the man. We're losing this war, that's true, and we don't have the manpower to fight both the army that's coming and Yagura himself. Hell, I don't think an army can defeat Yagura, especially when he uses the chakra of the Sanbi. That's when something important hit her, snapping her head up, alerting the others. Her eyes widen a bit. Maybe, just maybe, he might help us. If he were to help us, I have no doubt we'd win this war. Mei-sama? Are you okay? The general asked his leader. Looking at the general with a small smile and a hopeful look in her emerald eyes, she spoke. I think I may know a way to win this war. She spoke, getting shocked looks from them all. Abruptly standing up, the general spoke. What exclamation mark dot dot why you know a way? He asked, nodding. She spoke, yes, but it all depends if he accepts. She said the last part softly before turning towards her commanders. All right, I want you all to go to your posts. I'll explain everything later. First I need to check on something, she said, getting hesitant nods from them all. When they all left, Mei turned toward the window looking into the deep forest of Mizuno-kuni before letting a slip of a smile cross her face. I wonder, will you help me again like you did last time? Sarukan? She asked herself in a voice filled with hope as she got up and did some hand seals. Kuchios no Jutsu, she said, before a puff of smoke erupted. When it cleared, there before Mei was a small serpentine lizard with wings on its back. Rearing its head up to Mei, it spoke. Is there something you need, Mei-sama? Yes, I want you to go into that forest and find someone for me. Here, this has his scent on it, she said, fishing out a small black cloth. The lizard leaned over and smelled the piece of clothing before looking back at Mei. I got his scent. Is there anything you want me to tell him? Yes, tell him that Mei needs his help greatly, and it's very important that he comes here quickly. That's all I ask of him. This got a nod from the small serpentine lizard before it ran through a hole in the tent and into the forest. Mei watched her summon disappear into the forest before lowering her gaze to the floor as a soft yet longing look came into her eyes. I hope you accept and come. It would be nice to see you again. With that she turned around and left the tent to prepare her forces for the battle that is to come. One day later, jungle of Kirigakura's Mei's summon came upon the cabin in the jungle and scrambles across the ground quickly as it came upon the front door. Once looking up at the door, the lizard started to scratch on it to get the attention of the person inside. It seemed to work when it heard footsteps coming closer, so when the door opened, the lizard's eyes comically widened at the sight before it. Hello little one, what is it you need? Naruto asked as crouches down while the lizard just shook its lead head and spoke. I'm here on behalf of Mei Tirami. She has asked for your audience, but also said it was very urgent you came. The lizard said, while Naruto tilted his head to the right a bit before chuckling. Very well, tell her I'll be there shortly and thank you for relaying this to me, he said, which the lizard just nodded before puffing away in a cloud of smoke. When it was gone, Naruto looked into the forest in the direction of the rebel camp. Seems Mei-chan needs help, well can't keep her waiting. With that he turned around and walked into the house before closing the door, getting his gear. Kirigakura rebel's main camp. Mei sighed as she looked upon her forces all lined up looking at her with serious expressions. She had just explained the details of Yagura and his army coming to finish them off. She seen their grief-stricken faces at finding out such information, but was quickly determined when they remembered what they were exactly fighting for. She just hoped it wasn't too late and he got here before the fight began. Despite how brave her forces were and determined to win, she knew they wouldn't. Even she couldn't hear Guro when he used the Sanbi chakra. Sure, she could take him down with him alone, but that in itself is a tough fight. Looking upon her forces once more she spoke, now we must prepare for the battle. I want all shinobi at their posts and begin preparations for the enemy, she shouted, getting a massive high from them all before they dispersed into multiple directions to prep the battlefield. Once they were gone, Mei looked upon the rising sun and was already seeing the slight formations of the enemy coming. Sighing, she let her thoughts go back to him. Naruto. I wish you were here. She softly uttered, praying to Kami that he would come to their aid. I am here, Mayhem. The said rebel leader stood shocked still before turning around to find the owner of the voice. Only for her eyes to widen and a big smile come upon her face for the person in front of her. It was none other than Naruto himself, and strapped to his back was his katana while his staff was in a small skirly, as well as several smaller ones that were attached to his sash. Swaying behind him was his tail, and he had his grew out to where it was now shoulder length and had it tied back into a low ponytail, like how Gohan's was when he trained in the hyperbolic time chamber. He had black bandage wrapped around his arms and stopped near his elbows, like how Rock Lee wears his, and also wore his black martial arts gi with his martial arts shoes. The only difference was the fact that Naruto had grown a lot taller during these last 6 months and was close to matching Mei's height. She then walked over to Naruto and hugged him while he returned it. Looking at Naruto, Mei let a small blush come upon her face before speaking. I didn't think you would make it in time, she admitted, while Naruto just chuckled. Yeah, sorry, I had some last-minute things to take care of, he said, breaking the hug, making Mei pout, which got another chuckle from the Saiyan. Putting up a serious expression, Naruto spoke. Now, Mei-chan, what is it you needed to speak to me about? He asked, and Mei just remembered the fast-approaching army coming, which made her eyes take a serious look in them. This made Naruto blink a bit. It was quite rare for Mei to become so serious in front of him. Naruto-kun, you know of the war we've been fighting? She asked, which made Naruto nod. He's known about the war since he's partaken in a few of those battles when they came near the forest. Of course he wouldn't be there long just so he could help the rebels fight back. Yeah, I know of it, but what does that got to do with anything? He said curiously. Mei just looked down at the ground before doing something very surprising. Her emerald eyes started to tear up, making Naruto's eyes go wide at the sight. Never has Naruto seen Mei cry before, but seeing it now made his heart hurt. Letting out a grim expression, Naruto placed his hands on both of her shaking shoulders. Mei-chan, what's wrong? He asked sincerely. Mei quickly realized her tears and quickly cleared them away, but it was too late since he has already seen them. It's Yagura, Naruto-kun. He's making a final push and converging his whole army here to wipe us out, and we truly don't have the manpower to really fight back. Naruto's eyes widened a bit before narrowing. He was linking what she was saying while still listening to her speak. Despite how much the rebels want to win, it's impossible. We can't fight an army and a Jinchuriki with full control over his Baiju, she said. Looking up, she saw the stern expression upon Naruto's face. Naruto-kun, I know it's selfish, but please, I beg you. She fell on her hands on knees and bowed her head before him, surprising the Saiyan as he knew Mei was a strong and proud kunoichi. Help us, she begged while sobbing quietly, as this war was too much for her, especially since she was the leader of the rebel faction, but all the responsibility did was do more harm than help, and it was too much for her. Although Naruto really didn't like to kill, it was only necessary when he fought to protect those important to him, and Mei was undoubtedly very important to him. Plus this civil war also reminded him too much of how the villagers treated his sister. Prejudice against things they don't understand because they were too stuck in the past. With that, he kneels down to her sobbing form and places both of his hands on the sides of her face. Mei felt his hands on her face and looked up to see Naruto smile warmly at her tear-stained face and gently wiped the tears away. You already know my answer, Haim, he said softly as he helped her on her feet. Besides, I would have helped you even if you didn't ask for my help. Plus I'll get to find out firsthand just how powerful the Mizukage is, even if he can control the full power of his Baiju. The Saiyan finished in a tone full of excitement, surprising the dual bloodline holder, but then she shook her head as she saw the excitement in his eyes and facing a powerful opponent, and shook her head in amusement. Naruto-kun, you never change, do you? She said, greatly amused by his attitude towards fighting. Naruto just chuckled, scratching the back of his head sheepishly. Turning toward the soon-to-be battlefield, Naruto spoke. I can't help that, mate-chan, but I do have to tell you, if the battle Yagura and us gets out of hand and he starts to release his Baiju, I want you to get out of there. He said, making Mei look at him like he was crazy. What? But that's crazy. If I do, you'll be killed, because when he uses his Baiju, Yagura is unbeatable when he uses that chakra. Only another Jinchuriki has enough power to face him. She cried, inwardly questioning Naruto's sanity of such a question. The Saiyan just chuckled before looking at the prepared battlefield once more. Let's just say, I have a way to fight him, but please just do this for me if it happens, alright? He asked. Mei just looked at him worried before seeing the confident look in his eyes. Seeing that look, all worry was gone in a blink of an eye. Instead she just shook her head and smiled. Well, if it does happen, you better come back alive, or so help me, I will drag you back from death, so I can kill you myself. Got that? She said, poking him in the chest to emphasize each word. Naruto merely sweat drops but nods before taking her hand in his and kisses her knuckles, making he blush in an instant. Don't worry, you won't be the only one that would kill me if I died right now. I have 2 other redheads back home that would kick my ass if I died here, he said. Then before her bodyguard Ao could see him, Naruto's form disappeared in a burst of speed, leaving a smiling Mei behind. 1 hour later, battlefield. Upon the cratered and broken battlefield was 2 armies on different sides. On one side you had the Mizukage Yagura and his army fighting for the ideal Kirigakure and killing off all bloodlines within their village. On the other, you had Itirami Mei, leader of the rebel faction, which fought for not just their people, but also the bloodline's survival. The first wave of Yagura's army was already decimated by traps set up by Mei's forces, but already after fighting the massive forces of Yagura's army after only an hour was taking its toll on them. Upon this field of bloodshed was Yagura Jinchuriki of the Sanbi and current Mizukage. In front of him was Mei Tirami, rebel leader and current bloodline user of the Yotanan Futon, lava and boil release. Glaring, Mei looked around to see her forces engaging Yagura's own. Mei, why do you continue to fight back? You're the only ninja I respect, even if you have one of those accursed bloodlines, questioned Yagura as Mei looked back at him with a glare. I fight for not only Kirigakure, but for the safety of the children with bloodlines. Because of you, families were separated, slaughtered, or just plain butchered. I'm fighting to stop that and bring Kirigakure back to what she answered back, getting a glare from the cage. Used to be. How foolish of you, then you shall die with your own demonic kin, Mei, screamed the crazed cage. Mei stood guard as Yagura charged at her, leaving behind dust in his wake. He was almost upon her form until a blur struck him right across the face and sent him flying in the air and crashing into the ground hard, causing a cloud of dust to erupt into the air and the ground to slightly shake. Mei blinked before looking ahead to see Naruto smiling at her with a wave with his right leg up, showing he was the one to have kicked Yagura. Hey Mei-chan. Sorry I'm late, I got lost on the road of life, he said, gaining a twitch of an eyebrow from Mei while back in Konoha. The copy ninja Kakashi Hitake sneezed hard, wondering who was talking about him. You and your excuses, Naruto-kun, she muttered, shaking her head. Naruto on the other hand just grinned before turning around quickly to see the glaring form of Yagura with his clothes and body scratched a bit from hitting the ground, as well as the broken nose that was slowly healing with blood going down his face showed how much the hit injured him. Who are you? Yagura questioned as he saw the black-haired warrior land beside Mei. Who am I, you ask? Just your average 12-year-old with a monkey tail. Naruto answered back with a toothy grin and his tail swaying behind him. Yagura's eyes widened as he saw the appendage sway back and forth and narrowed his eyes at the new opponent. So all this time another accursed bloodline holder was hiding in my country? You must be the so-called entity of the forest who has been aiding these scum? Yagura stated as Naruto rolled his shoulders in order to get the kink out. Sheesh, what an attitude. So what if I was born with a tail? I happen to like it and it attracts a lot of good attention, Naruto stated with a grin on his face before he narrowed his eyes in a serious fashion, surprising Yagura as the playful demeanor changed into one of a warrior by the next second. I came here to help Mei-chan and end this senseless war. Yagura on the other hand looked irked. Senseless? I am purifying my lands by ridding them of these accursed bloodlines. People like her are the reasons why we always go to war. Clans with bloodlines are nothing but a cancer that needs to be cleansed, and that is what I'm doing. Naruto on the other hand clenches his fists at his proclamation and scowls. Purifying? You call a mass genocide a good cause? All you've done is destroy your home and the lives of those who are innocent and had nothing to do with this war. All this destruction over nothing is not right. You call my cause nothing? Foolish boy, I don't have to explain my reasons to you or anyone, as the only thing awaiting you and that wench and those rebels is death. He growled as his chakra flared. Fine then, if reason won't make you understand then my fists will. Naruto said, and with that, a blue flaming aura flared around his body, making chunks of earth rise around him. A form of curiosity appeared in Yagura's eyes as he could actually see this. Chakra? It didn't feel like chakra or yukai, so what exactly was this energy, he wondered. So the time for talk is over? Well then boy, show me exactly just how powerful you are. Yagura challenged. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Naruto remarked before vanishing in a blur, surprising both Yagura and Mei as that was pure speed, meaning there was no chakra in his movements. The next thing that happened was Yagura's head jerking back from a vicious right hook to the jaw, making his eyes glaze over from the impact and stumble back a little. He then hunched over as Naruto drove his fist into his gut, making him spit up before being assaulted by a series of several punches to the sternum. Naruto stopped his assault, delivers a roundhouse kick to the cage's skull and sent him flying and crashing through several rock textures. Naruto vanished once again and appeared behind the man's flying form with his right palm pushed backwards and then thrusting it forward, releasing a powerful telekinetic shockwave to Yagura's spine, and said vessel for the Sanbi went sailing through the ground, creating a deep trench line. Mei was gobsmacked at what just happened and her eyes bugged out when she saw him hover into the air. Naruto on the other hand remained focused and knew this was far from and didn't drop his guard for even a second. Come on Yagura, I know those love taps couldn't have taken you out so easily, he said quietly until from the smoke several large water bullets flew out and headed straight for Naruto. Said black-haired warrior, dodged and weaved through the attacks until one of the larger ones hit him directly in the chest and sent him crashing into the ground. Naruto. Mei went after his fallen form, and as she approached him, he was sprawled out on the ground shaking the cobwebs out of his head before flipping back onto his feet. Ow. Man, that smarts. Naruto cried out as he held his throbbing chest for a few seconds before shaking it off. Those water bullets were no joke. A normal person, even if they were a ninja, would have been seriously injured. That was when a smirk formed on his face. I guess he's a cage for a reason. I've got to be more careful and not slip up or I'm done for. Not bad boy, but not good enough. Yagura stated before going through a series of 50 hand seals at a fast pace before adding chakra into his lungs. Suiton, Suirayud, water release, water dragon bullet. He instantly shot a large torrent of water from his mouth and it took the form of a roaring water dragon with glowing yellow eyes and ascended towards the two. Mei clapped his hands together as the dragon made its way towards them. Naruto, get behind me, she ordered, which he did while her cheeks expand a little. Yoton, Miguma Dangan, lava release, magma bullet. She then shot out several large lava bullets at her foe, who did a ram seal in one hand. Suiton, Susha, water release, water shockwave. This time Yagura shot out an even larger torrent of water that cancelled out Mei's technique and rushed at them. Damn it. I can't counter that in time. Mei cursed as the large wave of water loomed over them and was ready to crush them both until Naruto appeared behind her and wrapped one arm around her before taking off into the air as the water crashed in their location. Yagura's eyes widened in frustration as he saw the boy save them both before Naruto landed back on the ground with said russet-haired Kunoichi. It's a good thing I can fly, he commented while Yagura was getting frustrated. How was he able to do that? He wasn't using any chakra in that technique he used, and the only ones who could actually fly were the Nidamen and Sandaime Tsuchikage. Just who dragon at them both. This kid? He then once again fires another water knot this time. Naruto brought his hand back and gathered blue ki in his palms. He brought them forward and fired an energy blast at the dragon. The water dragon engulfed the blast, but then it expanded and exploded into water, making it spray everywhere, much to Yagura's shock. Impossible! How did he didn't get to finish as he was struck in the side of the face by an aerial high kick to the side of his face, making him stumble back a little. He snapped out of his daze before his senses put him on high alert and brought his right arm up to block another attack, but Naruto broke through and delivered a palm strike to his jaw before spinning around his back and delivering a reversal spin kick to his spine and sent him flying across the battlefield and crashing into a large rock texture that fell over and buried the cage in the rubble. Mei on the other hand remained stumped and flabbergasted as she saw Naruto smack the man around like he was a genin. Naruto landed back onto the ground, remaining in his fighting stance and with a focused look on his face. Said russet-haired female appeared beside him. "It's not over," she replied, getting a nod from him. "You think I'm? The only thing I did was piss him off and I'm pretty positive he's not gonna be in a happy mood." Naruto didn't know how right he was because the rubble erupted into nothing and murderous intent and Yukai filled the area, making the rebels feel the intent and look fearful. A bead of sweat fell from Mei's brow as she saw a pissed-off Yagura snarl at them with glowing eyes while a greenish-blue demonic cloak with 3 swaying tails swayed behind him as his injuries healed up. "You're dead, boy," he growled out, "you hear me? You're dead." He released a roar that shook the area, causing a shockwave to blow around the area, making rocks and other debris scatter about. "Mei, you need to clear out," Naruto informed her. She wanted to protest it, but the look in his eyes showed no form of joking and remembered what he said back then. She didn't want to leave him alone to fight this monster, but she knew good and well she was no match for Yagura when he used his Baiju powers and let out a relented sigh. "I know." And Naruto, said Saiyan turned his head only to have Mei catch his lips in hers, making his eyes widen before he returned it, and they pulled away from each other while said woman had a small blush on her face. "Good luck," she informed him before she shuns out of the way. Naruto then vanishes and appears before a pissed-off Yagura's form. "You may have gotten lucky earlier, boy, but now you're gonna know the true meaning of fear before I send you into oblivion." "Oh really? Well, let me tell you, Yagura, this whole time I wasn't even taking you seriously," Naruto commented with a smirk on his face, and Yagura's eyes widened a little. "You're bluffing. There's no way a mere human could have the strength to rival a Jinchuriki's. It's impossible." "Says you, and what makes you think I'm human?" A small smile grew on his face as he gets into a fighting stance. "It doesn't matter if you're human, demon, or just a freak of nature, you're still going to die." He vanished from his spot and appeared behind Naruto with his fist raised and brings it down. Naruto vanished as Yagura punched the ground and created a large crater, kicking up rocks and dust. Naruto appeared on a rock texture in a crouching position before getting up and firing a barrage of ki blasts at Yagura. Said Cage turned his head and saw the incoming blasts before sprinting across the field, avoiding the blasts and heading towards his prey, so he thinks. He punches his arm forward, causing a ethereal arm to extend and head straight for Naruto. The young Saiyan saw it and then extends his hand out, forming a yellow ball in his hand, and then it starts to flatten and take the form of a rotating energy disc and rears his arm back. Destructo disc. With that, Naruto throws the disc at the arm. As soon as the attacks collided, the disc simply cuts through the ethereal hand like a hot knife through butter. Yagura's eyes widened as he saw the technique cut through the outstretched chakra arm, so he cancelled out the attack and was forced to avoid the deadly energy attack unless he wanted to get his head lopped off, but the bypassing attack did leave a nasty gash on his left cheek while the disc cut down several trees and boulders before dissipating. "This is madness. His attack cut through my cloak as if it was nothing? That was pure Yukai that I use, and he just... Damn it. Damn you, boy, I swear if it's the last thing I do I'll kill you." Yagura bellowed as he got on all fours and snarled at the young Saiyan. His cloak flared up and he unleashed several chakra claws at Naruto, who basically used his reflexes and ki blasts to either dodge or destroy the ethereal hands, infuriating the cage of Kiri. "Hold still, you freak. That was when Naruto vanished in a blur of pure speed before appearing under Yagura with both palms in front of his cloak. Yagura's eyes widened at the boy's speed, wondering how he was able to easily dodge the attacks of a cage. "Let's test the limit of your cloak, shall we?" Naruto asked as blue ki gathered in both of his hands and formed into orbs and afterwards joined together to create a larger energy sphere. Yagura's eyes widened as he realized what Naruto was gonna do. "No. Stop, you foolish brat," or he didn't get to finish because Naruto let out a battle cry and fired. The ki sphere pressed against Yagura's cloaked body, making his feet skid back against the dirt as he tried to stand his ground. The blast pushed outwards as Naruto was surrounded by a flaming blue aura. With one final push, Naruto poured more energy into the attack and Yagura was sent flying across the battlefield. He was blasted through the front gate of the village and into the evacuated land, before an explosion occurred and smoke in form of a mushroom rose into the air. "Oh man, it's a good thing the village was evacuated. I have to be more careful and not let my instincts get me like that," Naruto replied before taking off into the air and towards his opponent. Meanwhile, watching the battle from afar were Mei and her second-in-command Ao, who both were wide-eyed and their jaws hung from the ground, as did the rebels who witnessed the attack from earlier. "My Kami-sama, where did you find that kid?" the patch-wearing man asked his leader, who remained speechless as she saw the magnitude of his attack and was glad he was on their side. Smiling, she spoke proudly, "That's a secret, how?" "Sidelines of the battlefield, good God. The kid's beating Yagura down like a rag doll," said the amazed words of the rebel shinobi. "I know what you mean, and even in his cloaked form the kid is still beating him." Another one said, awed at the fight before him. "That kid is so cute," said a female shinobi who had hearts in her eyes, which made the other two just sigh. Naruto was flying through the village before landing on top of a tower and searching the area for his foe. His energy signature has weakened greatly and it's only a matter of time before he didn't get to finish because the ground underneath him rumbled and shook violently, startling the young Saiyan. "Oh man, that's not Yagura who's causing this, it's that was when the ground erupted, causing debris and dust to shoot out everywhere," while Naruto covered his eyes before looking up and staring at none other than the Sanbi no Kyode game, three-tailed giant turtle. The three tails primarily resembles a turtle, but with a crab-like shell, and three shrimp-like tails. It has a pair of human arms and hands, but no hind legs. Its right eye is constantly closed, indicating some sort of injury, and because of this, it is particularly vulnerable to attacks directed at its right eye. "Wow, so this is the Sanbi? Funny, I didn't expect you to be this ugly," Naruto remarked while the creature stared down at the black-haired warrior before growling in a low manner. Its one eye glared murderously at him, while its three giant tails swished around him, crushing and sweeping buildings around it like nothing. Many were now horrified, whether they are enemy or ally, to face a Baiju who was just asking for a slaughter. "Mei and Ao Kami, help us all," Ao stated, looking upon the fully formed Sanbi of legend. Its giant form crushing much of the village already. Hope was slowly dwindling from his eyes seeing the tailed beast of legend. Mei though was more focused on Naruto. His form wasn't deterred from seeing the Baiju. If anything, he looked more excited than anything, but didn't show it. But she knew he was excited. She's known him long enough to read him enough to know that much. That's why right now, she was more curious than fearful for what was going to happen now. "Good luck, Naruto-kun. Wow, this beast's chakra levels are incredible. If this is how strong a three-tailed Baiju is, I can only imagine how strong Kyuubi could be. She could easily mop the floor with this clown." A grim expression formed on his face as he rose into the air and stared down at the giant turtle. "At this rate there won't be a village to go back to. I really didn't want to use that yet since I'm still learning how to maintain it." He sighs in annoyance and brushes his hair back a little. "What choice do I have? I know Goku-sensei said to not use it unless the situation was dire, but this would be one of those times." He then got into a horse stance once again and started to gather his power. He grits his teeth as his hair rises once more, but this time, it takes on an even spikier appearance. The skies start to darken and thunderclouds cackle around the area. As the sky rumbled, flashes of lightning rained from the heavens and the ground started to rumble. "With Mei-sama, what's going on?" Ao asked as he tried to get his footing in check. I don't know, but for some reason I know this is our allies doing, she answered before dashing towards the village gate. Wait. Mei-sama, Ao shouted as he went to join her, as did Chojuro. With Naruto. Naruto growled lowly as his power continued to rise. From underneath his form, chunks of rock, buildings, and other debris rose into the air, and the earth split from the weight of his power. His muscles flexed from the power increase, and bursts of yellow static shot around his body. That was when his hair flashed a golden color before returning to its basic color. The thunderclaps became even louder as Naruto's power level kept rising. After a few minutes, Naruto reaches his max in his normal state before he reared his head back. That was when he released one final cry, and a golden flaming key aura flared around his body. Due to the release of his new power, the ruined buildings around him tumbled over and collapsed. The flare caused the entire area around him to coat the gloomy village in a bright light. Naruto's appearance completely changed. Now his hair was spiked upwards, minus the bangs, and took on a golden color, as where his clothing was a lighter shade, appearing to be a light gray color, and the same with his complexion being a little lighter than normal and the slight increase in muscle. His expression was a lot sharper and more fierce looking, and his eyes were no longer dark blue, and his tail was now a golden color. They were now teal and were gazing at the Sanbi with a piercing expression that would make anyone tremble in fear. No more. It ends here, Yagura, Naruto said in a calm yet cold voice. With Mei, Ao, and Chojuro my Kami, that kid is emitting all of that power? Incredible. It's practically on par if not greater than the Sanbi, but that's impossible. How can a mere boy possess such great strength? The Byakugan wielder wondered. Mei on the other hand was entranced by Naruto's golden form. The light emitting from the now Super Saiyan was so warm and shined like the sun, enveloping everything around him. If it wasn't for the fact that Naruto had a monkey tail, she'd practically think he was an angel sent from heaven to purge their village from the darkness that slowly destroyed them in this war. Sanbi growled for a while before releasing a powerful roar that released a shockwave so powerful that it blew everything before it minus Naruto back. Said Super Saiyan just stood there floating into the air, not moving a single muscle, while his hair and aura blew back a little before it died down. Nice breeze, Naruto merely said as the beast growled at him before bringing his massive arm up and swinging it forward at Naruto, who just stood there. What's that fool doing? Ao cried out as he saw the massive appendage head straight for the golden-haired fighter. Naruto brought his left arm up to the side as the appendage went right at him, and when it struck, nothing happened as he simply blocked the attack with his arm while the ground underneath him rumbled. Both Ao's and Chojiro's eyes bug out in a comically fashion and their jaws hung down. Did he just? Chojiro started to say. He did. He stopped Sanbi's arm with his wrist. Ao finished. My turn, Naruto said as he brought his palm in front of the Sanbi's face. He then fires a powerful Kai-Ai, spirit cannon, blast that sends the massive creature flying backward, and the after effects level the demolished buildings and roads in the village. The Sanbi crashes through several large buildings before tumbling onto the ground, kicking up dust and debris. Naruto remained in his posture for a few seconds before bringing his hand down as flying towards his opponent's location. The giant turtle rose from the rubble roaring in frustration before throwing a large chunk of rock at Naruto. Said Saiyan vanished in a blur before reappearing again and fires a ki blast at the second boulder, demolishing it. The Sanbi then fires a large water bullet from its gullet at Naruto, who weaves around them before punching the last one back at the Sanbi who got hit by it and roared out in anger. Naruto appeared over his head with his right leg up before descending and striking it directly in the head with a powerful heel drop kick, and practically cracked the shell on tops of its head and crashed headfirst into the ground. This has gone on for too long. I have to end this, Naruto stated as he flew up into the air until he was high enough and stared at the Sanbi's fallen form as it tried to get up. He then cupped his hands together and brought them back. He started to gather blue ki in his hands, and a blue orb shined around the area as it hummed to life. Kansas.me.ha.me. His aura flared as he powered up the attack. Ha! he shouted as he thrusts his hands forward and shoots out a streaming, powerful light blue beam of energy downwards at the Sanbi, who looks up to see the beam head right for him. The technique crashes down and engulfs the beast in a dome of light, while Senbei roared out in pain as the attack tore through his body until a great explosion occurred, sending a shockwave that made every form of debris scatter everywhere. Mei, Ao and Chojuro were forced to cover their faces with the attack and add shocker to their feet in order to cling onto the top of the gate. Naruto watched as the flash died down and smoke rose from the very deep and large crater his attack caused. The smoke slowly cleared and revealed the form of a beaten, bloody, broken, and unconscious Yagura, whose clothes were tattered and torn. Naruto slowly descended to the ground and landed right next to Yagura, looking down at his form for a few seconds before looking up to see the clouds clear up and the sun to shine down on the very village that covered in darkness but thanks to Naruto was now basking in the light. "It's over," he said as he reverted back into his normal state and collapsed onto the ground, completely exhausted. Several minutes later, Mei and a few of her rebel ninja appeared in the battle scene. The 18-year-old knelt down at the Saiyan's tired form and placed his head on her lap before smiling at him. Naruto looked back up at her with tired eyes and smiled weakly, giving her a thumbs up and chuckling. "Congratulations, Mayhem. You guys. 1. He finished before passing out with a smile on his face. She couldn't help but chuckle at his antic before tears of happiness fell down her cheek and landed on Naruto's. "Thank you, Naruto-kun. Thank you for bringing our war-torn lands back into the light," she thanked to the young Saiyan as the sun rays shined down on his face. Today was the day that Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, descendant of the legendary Saiyan Goku, had made his first mark as the future guardian of this world.